Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. President Trump says he plans to announce his decision on the Paris Climate Agreement today, but last-minute pressure from China could affect his plans. Speaking in Berlin, the Chinese premier argued in favor of the agreement, noting China's commitment to it and saying that fighting climate change is a, quote, international responsibility. The president has received intense pressure from others as well to stick with the agreement. His daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner want it, but chief strategist Stephen Bannon and more than 20 GOP senators won out. Sources say the president is likely to bow out, but so far he's not saying.
Are you leaning toward getting out?
You're going to find out very soon.
The president made a campaign promise to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. He says he'll announce his decision at a Rose Garden ceremony today at 3. The House Intelligence Committee is digging deeper into its investigation on Russia and President Trump's presidential campaign. The committee has issued 7 subpoenas. 4 of them are directly related to allegations of Russia's interference with the election, including some for Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn and attorney Michael Cohen. The committee also issued subpoenas to the National Security Agency, the FBI, and the CIA. They are investigating whether these agencies unmask the identities of Trump campaign officials. Although the U.S. successfully stopped a mock long-range missile, North Korea is still pursuing a nuclear missile that could reach the continental United States. But missile defense experts say after this latest test, bring it on. They say it sends a clear message to Kim Jong-un, we will not be bullied. CBN defense correspondent Eric Rosales has the detail.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
It was the first live-fire intercept test of an intercontinental ballistic missile in history, a critical U.S. victory coming at a critical time.
It was phenomenal, historic for the country, for the world, making our planet, our country safe from North Korea. It's phenomenal. It was the first time ever in the history that we shot down an ICBM missile.
Ricky Ellison heads up the Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance. He started the organization to support the defense program and to keep all Americans safe. He was personally invited to watch the launch.
They can't threaten us. They cannot invest enough money. They cannot create the technology to hold the United States hostage with a nuclear weapon on a ballistic missile. This is a tremendous achievement for just the deterrent ability it has.
Ellison calls it a win-win for the American public because it gives the president and commanders more options to challenge North Korea. As the mock warhead rose across the Pacific, the interceptor roared into space from California's Vandenberg Air Base, more than 4,000 miles away. Within an hour, the 5-foot-long interceptor hit its mark. It's described as the equivalent of hitting one speeding bullet with another.
Very difficult calculation where you have to look at its arc and you have to figure out where the intercept is going to occur somewhere deep in outer space. That is truly rocket science in every sense of the word.
Now, both Pentagon and missile defense experts say the real work continues, picking through the data to ensure the same outcome each time.
We will continue to get better at it. We will learn from it, and we're going to add more capability and create better software, better hardware. But we had some big firsts this time. We had the first ever avionic package and new C-tube booster, which is the 3 stages that put the kill vehicle in the right spot.
Ellison says the U.S. government plans to install 8 new rockets at Vandenberg before the end of the year. In Washington, Eric Rosales, CBN News.
Fighting between the Philippine Army and Maute rebels affiliated with ISIS has caused tens of thousands of people to leave their homes in Mindanao. Many are now residing in evacuation centers in the city of Iligan. CBN Asia correspondent Lucille Toulousan is in the battle zone and says CBN relief efforts to help the displaced Filipinos were delayed in one village.
They were asked to turn around because in one of the towns that they were about to go to, there were sightings of ISIS. And so they're still going to that town, but in another area. They're doing feeding. Of course, it's Ramadan, and so the feeding will be at 6 o'clock in the evening. And also they are distributing some mats and slippers and some clothes and some food, which the evacuees really need.
Philippines President Duterte has declared martial law in Mindanao and pledges an all-out war to defeat the ISIS-linked terrorists. To hear more from Lucille, including how 2 Muslim women stepped in to save Christian lives, log on to the Global Lane blog at cbnnews.com. Coming up, we're heading to Ammunition Hill, a place where Israeli troops fought one of the first urban warfare battles 50 years ago. See how one of the most important battles in Israel's history set the stage for fighting terrorists today. The new film Wonder Woman is officially banned from theaters in Lebanon. The ban came from a Lebanese group that campaigns to boycott supporters of the Israel-Lebanon relationship. The main actress of the film, Gail Gadot, is an Israeli and a former soldier in the Israeli army. The boycott group says on their Facebook page that Gadot is a supporter of Israel's military and policies against the Palestinian region of Gaza. Grand Cinemas and the Warner Brothers in Lebanon announced the ban on their Twitter feeds. The ban would have reportedly been decided by Lebanon's Ministry of Economy. The Six-Day War in 1967 was not only a turning point in Israel's history, it also played a pivotal role in the development of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. One of the first urban warfare battles took place in Jerusalem, and it set the stage for the future. Scott Ross spoke with an IDF commander who told him how the impact of that conflict is still being felt 50 years later.
The 55th Paratroopers Brigade still serves as a reserve unit today, as it did in the 1967 battle for Jerusalem.
We're part of the 98th Division, which is more or less the equivalent of the 101st Airborne Division in the U.S. Army.
Lieutenant Colonel Anshel Pfeffer commands the 28th Reserve Battalion of the 55th Brigade.
We do the most interesting and most dangerous and most challenging missions in the IDF, so I believe. And as paratroopers, we live up to our code, walking on our feet in the night quietly and hitting the enemy wherever he is without him knowing about us in advance.
Pfeffer, a high-tech executive, took me through the trenches at Ammunition Hill, where battalion soldiers fought for Jerusalem 50 years ago.
Well, Ammunition Hill was the bunker of the Jordanian police academy, which is just behind us. And the police academy was the main objective of that specific battle before they continued towards the old city.
And this was, day 2 of a 6-day war?
Day 2. After taking the police academy, they advanced towards, it's called today the Ammunition Hill, and they spent many, many hours trying to advance from trench to trench.
How many men were here fighting?
They began almost 200, and very, very few remained standing at the end of the battle.
My. But they weren't trained for this kind of warfare,
No,
were they?
They were very surprised. They described it as a very big disappointment not being parachuted to fight the Egyptians, but then, of course, it became one of the most important battles in Israeli history. The battle specifically here, but also in other places in Jerusalem, was all done in very improvised Israeli-type warfare.
It's hard to understand how men with equipment on their backs, I assume, rifles, grenades, whatever other equipment they had, how did they make it through these narrow trenches to take the enemy on, to encounter them?
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, many of them had to climb above, and the stories describe young soldiers telling their commanders, I'm going to go up with my machine gun, and as you're walking down in the trench, I'll go on top. And every time they advanced 1, 2, 3, 5 feet, and then the next guy climbed up and continued it. The previous one was hit, and that's how they managed to advance. Some of them pulled back the injured towards the injured facility with the doctors behind, but they had to keep advancing.
I can stand here as an American and look at our history and talk about Revolutionary War, Civil War. That's hundreds of years ago. Right. This is 50 years ago.
Indeed.
You know, I don't want to get overly dramatic, how can you? But this is hallowed ground. Do you see it that way?
Yes, it is. This ground is holy ground as far as the way we see it, because our friends, our comrades fell here. It's a place we respect very much. As you can see, it became a national monument.
standing by the half-track that barreled through Lions Gate into the old city, Pfeffer told me of their honor in continuing the heritage of those who have gone before them. Have you talked to any of the men who fought and some of your fathers, grandfathers, and talk to them about their emotion of that moment?
Yeah, it's important to mention. We, every year on the Six-Day War Commemoration Day, we meet with our predecessors. We also remember the fallen and we talk to them. It's a very strong part of our heritage.
What motivated these men?
At the end of the day, it's fighting with your friends, with your comrades, what they call brothers in arms, and that's what makes people at the end of the day rise up towards enemy fire and advance. The big vision, the mission, conquering Jerusalem, all that, it's important, but at the end of the moment when you rise up towards the fire, it's for your friends.
Are you men motivated like that today?
We believe so. We look up to them. Today's young soldiers are as, both in their professionalism and also in their values, are as good as we were then.
Pfeffer, who commands about 700 reserves, told me how important the lessons of that war are to soldiers today. How has the past affected the future, the training of the men now?
The Battle for Jerusalem in 1967 was one of the first battles in urban warfare. And if you look around today, both in the IDF and also the US Army and any other Western army, the challenge of fighting terrorists and other organizations which are fighting from within civilian and urban warfare environments has become the most common part of warfare, and we're learning.
But even today, you're surrounded by people that want to destroy you, that want to annihilate you, wipe you off the map, drive you into the sea. Your existence is questioned. So, do you live in a defensive posture, or do people live in fear?
I'm a reserve soldier.
Right.
80% of my time I'm with my family, at my work, enjoying life, having a great time. And I think most of Israelis live a peaceful, very happy, I'd say Western-like lifestyle. Every couple of years, we have a few weeks of tension, and they know we're here to defend them. And now it's our turn.
Scott Ross for CBN News at Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem.
CBN has produced a documentary about the Six-Day War. It's called In Our Hands, The Battle for Jerusalem. Encore presentations of the film head to theaters on June 1st and 6th. Get your tickets today by going to inourhands1967.com. Tourists found a noose inside the National Museum of African American History and Culture Wednesday. The new museum in Washington, D.C. highlights African American history. Officials say this is the second noose left at the Smithsonian site in less than a week. The noose was found in the segregation section of the history galleries by museum visitors. The museum's founding director said in a statement that the incident is a reminder of the challenges African Americans still face. Police are investigating that incident. When it comes to talking about race in America, tensions often run high. Even within the black community, there can be disagreement on what's the right approach. Caitlin Burke brings us the story of one man who is taking on the issue in his own way.
Playing music comes as naturally as breathing for 58-year-old blues musician Daryl Davis.
Well, I've been playing music professionally full-time since 1980, when I graduated college at the age of 22.
Through music, Davis has formed some unique friendships.
That's Sam Phillips, the man who discovered Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, the boxer Joe Frazier, Dolly Parton.
And also unlikely ones.
And that was the head of the Maryland Ku Klux Klan.
How did you get to be friends with members of the KKK?
I just happened to be, in 1983, country music had made a resurgence in this country. So I was the only black guy in this country band, and consequently, the only black guy in many of the places where we played.
One place was the Silver Dollar Lounge in Frederick, Maryland. After a performance, a white man stopped Davis as he walked off the stage.
And he says, "You know, I really like your all's music." And I said, "Thank you." I shook his hand, and I don't drink, but I went back to his table and I had a cranberry juice with him. And then he makes the remark, when the waitress brings my cranberry juice, he clinks my glass and cheers me. And he says, "You know, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man." Well, now I'm thinking, wow, what's going on here? This guy's really having a night of firsts. And I said, why? And again, I was naive, and I wasn't trying to be facetious. And I said, well, why is that? He stared at the tabletop and didn't answer me. And he had a friend sitting next to him. He goes, tell him. I said, tell me. And finally he says, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Since age 10, when first confronted with the realities of racism, Davis pondered one question. How can you hate me when you don't know me? His unlikely KKK connection inspired him to start getting answers.
Some years later, I decided I was going to write a book on the Klan.
His research often put him in some dangerous situations, but it also led to an unexpected change in the relationship he shared with certain Klan members.
I would ask them questions, and they would answer the questions, but they wouldn't ask for my opinion. And then over time, I would say, so what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And they would say, well, I think da, 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 da. And then they would say, well, what do you think about it, Daryl? Oh, wait a minute. All of a sudden I have value?
Davis says he's convinced 25 members of the Ku Klux Klan to leave the organization simply through friendly conversation.
And when they did so, they gave me their robes and hoods. That's just not done. This uniform represents white supremacy. And you're taking it off and giving it to a black man?
As a new generation of African Americans enter adulthood, they're fighting racism their own way. Rather than trying to change one mind at a time, as Davis has done, this activist generation is using social media to reach the masses.
Some in the Black Lives Matter movement have been critical of Davis, saying he's defeating their purpose with his relational approach.
The fact that I would sit down and spend so much time with the enemy when I should be devoting my time to changing the system of white supremacy.
Davis believes this younger generation has the right intent, although their methods can taint the mission.
You need a multi-prong attack from the front, from the side, from the back, through the rear window, whatever. You don't change the system without changing the people behind the system. Okay? That's why I'm sitting down with them. And I've had success.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Baltimore, Maryland.
More than 50 years ago, the Beach Boys sang "Catch a Wave and You'll Be Sitting on Top of the World." And today, surfing is as popular as ever. Wendy Griffith traveled to the white sandy beaches of Pensacola, Florida to learn to ride the waves and discovered this was no ordinary surf camp.
Did you know that surfing's in the Bible? In the book of Acts, when Paul was shipwrecked, it said that they rowed to shore on planks.
Ben Martin discovered surfing as a young boy. His natural talent led him to compete, and at one point, he almost went pro, but didn't make the cut. With his dream gone, Ben dropped out of high school and fell into drugs and crime. One night, while high on Oxycontin and alcohol, he flipped his car several times on the interstate. That's when he heard God speak.
And he's saying, you've been asking me to help you, and I am. But it's going to be hard, but I will see you through. Now I want you to go back to the scene of the crime.
Ben did return to the accident scene, was arrested, and ended up spending 3 months in jail.
I was on so much Oxycontin that you die from coming off the withdrawals. I literally looked like a fish flopping on the floor. And he came into that jail cell, and it was like the woman that was caught in adultery. He showed up at my worst moment. And he says, I don't condemn you. Now go and sin no more. That power, that gift of no condemnation gave me the power to overcome. And I'm telling you, he changed me in that jail cell.
After that night, Ben never looked back and felt God urging him to use his talents to teach others the joy of surfing.
And he just gave me really a simple formula, almost the ABCs of surfing. And with that, and with his anointing and his grace, I've been able to teach just about anyone, how to surf. And, the best surfer is the one having the most fun.
These surfers have come from all over the country here to Pensacola, and although they love the great waves the Gulf Shore provides, what they really like about Interlight Surf Camp is the spiritual components.
We didn't realize it was a Christian organization or company, and so when he prayed before we started.
Father, I pray that the jellyfish would disappear. In Jesus' name, amen.
We were like, are you kidding? This is awesome. It was just, we want to live here now and surf with them.
Jesus and surfing do go together.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with all the jellyfish out there.
What is it like to surf as an adult?
Well, when you actually get up, it's just, I don't know, it's like when you're a kid and you're riding a bike for the first time. You know, you actually stand up and you're just, I don't know, the wind is blowing in your hair.
It's a great feeling.
It's a great feeling, yeah.
Ben has always helped us. He's always encouraged us to go to God. Instead, he uses the surfing to also help with understanding Christ. He baptized us back in May, and he's just kind of showed us the way along with our parents.
I just saw you catch a pretty cool wave. How did it feel?
It was really enjoyable because usually we don't get surf like this in Pensacola. They tie a lot in with the Bible, like the leash that you get to use for being attached to your board. It's like your lifeline.
What do you love about surf camp?
I love that I can still surf even at my age. And it is exciting and it's fun. And to be able to do it with my son is even more exciting.
If you thought you could never surf, that's what I thought. And guess what? I was wrong. Ben says adults have more fears about surfing than kids.
So we have to overcome all the fears of why they can't. You know, fear is something that the world taught us. So when you break through that, when you push through and see that, wow, you really can, it really does change. It's like, where did we learn we couldn't?
Ben also likes to ease fears about what's under the water.
And that's why I incorporate prayer. I mean, I believe in the power of prayer, and God has definitely kept me safe. You know, and, you know, we get sharks a lot in the water. We're putting our faith in action, you know, when we enter into the Gulf and depending on God to keep us safe. We're not on the sharks menu.
For Ben, surfing is not only a passion, but a way to reach people that may never enter a church with a love of Jesus.
I really do feel like I'm serving the Lord when I'm surfing, you know, because it is a talent that He gave me. And I feel like, you know, I'm glorifying Him with that. You know, it's open doors for me to, you know, share the grace that He has shed upon me.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Pensacola, Florida.
That's it for now. Have a great day.